Hello, hello, hello. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day today. What is today? Today is Monday, March 6th, 2023. I should probably turn my mic up. Today is a softer voice day for me. I want to stream today. Not feeling the best, but we're going to push through it anyway. Just got woken up by the storms last night, and then our neighbors were doing construction or building something early this morning, so that really didn't help. So we're a little soft today, and that's all right. It's fine. Today we're doing our Forma Fest cleanup. The double affinity weekend is over, but I still have weapons that say they're not fully not MR, but they're not fully leveled because of the Forma Fest. Due to me like, oh, it got to 28 and then I stopped and just put a form on something else and leveled that. So today we're going to be just going through and doing cleanup on that. I know Nightwave reset, so we got some weeklies. And yeah, today's not going to be our typical 3.5 hour stream that apparently we've been doing the past few days. It'll be shorter. Probably maybe an hour, because I don't want to kill my voice. But yeah, let me switch our scenes to Warframe. There we are. Everything looks good. Let me pause our music, because we're gonna put on something else. We're gonna put on Spotify. You're not on shuffle. There we go. And then I'm just gonna check the volume real quick, and then we'll be off. I think it's a little quiet. That could also just be the song. This seems good. Alright. Let me put you back onto performance mode. Actually, wait, no, not yet, because I wanted to mess with... My chat box is too small on screen. There we go. Now we're ready. But yeah, just took 2 ibuprofen, waiting for it to fully kick in. My headache's not as bad as it was this morning, but still leaves some things to be desired. But yeah, I did some farming last night. If you saw my fucking tweet last night, I did some Arcwing leveling. God, I wish there was a way to level Arcwing outside of just doing the mobile defense, but I digress. And I realized, I was leveling the Kuva Ayanga and the Kuva Grattler, those 2 heavy weapons, those 2 Kuva weapons. And I realized I don't have Forma for this. I can't level these right now. And just that slap of reality of I don't have any Forma. But I have not looked at these Nightwave challenges. Donate to Laverian, sure. 6 rare fish, sure. Eximus, we were doing this. Surprisingly, I got 15 Eximus in 2 missions of just doing Arcwing shit. 3 different K-Drive races in the Orvalis, 3 relics, 4 vault keys, or dragon key vaults, and then complete 5 different steel path and 10 relics. So just a lot of relics this week, huh? Let me go over to our foundry. Foundry first, then arsenal. Yep. Hey, we have a single Forma. Let's go. But also, I did the math for... Well, I did the math. I looked up and did how long would it take? How long, if I built a Forma to, 1 Forma per day, how long would it take to get back up to the 137 that I started with? And that answer was 4.5 months at 1 per day. Fuck. Yeah, so we do have a bit of cleanup. So, my Kubazar being at 28, Lens being at 23. We got some cleanup. And I want to do it while I still have this affinity booster. Wrong one. Yeah, the Kuva Hind needs 3 more levels. I don't know what we're gonna do to fully level these. I think we'll just go top to bottom. I think what would be good would be doing spy vaults, but that's not exactly fast. Yeah, Detron. I think all of these. Nope. Gonna say I thought all of my melee weapons were done. Most of them are. Is it literally just this one weapon? Looks like it. Where am I? Yep, this is the one melee I have, and then any warframes that I missed. These all look pretty good. I don't see anything out of the ordinary. Except for the extra Octavia, that's fine. I should sell that Octavia, but effort. So I do need to check in with my syndicates. I would like some relic packs, actually. Yeah, get 2. Would like some more Baruch Prime relics, specifically the Lith B5, I think. We'll get one of you. Nothing there. But yeah, basically we're just gonna do like cleanup from the Forma Fest. So, what is today's sortie to? Not bad. But disruption. Today's gonna be a pretty chill stream, like I said, like probably an hour. Any luck with relics so far? Haven't started yet, but I mean, hopefully. God, we gotta do cleanup. So I'm thinking like Spy would be good, but Spy's not fast. Oh man. Spy's not fast, but it gives a shit ton of affinity. Unfortunately, the weekend booster is gone. Wish it was a 3-day, it was a 2-day. But we got a lot out of it anyway. Yeah, I'm trying to be like quieter today. Just I don't want to kill my voice. Cause like I can feel it grating a little bit, so I'm doing my quiet voice. Also try not to upset my like small headache while it goes away. Just fucking thunderstorms all night.
You are here to find our target and bring them to the extraction point.
I do have my Exceltra. I should be doing this on public. It's fine.
You found a target. Capture them quickly before they escape.
Oh, down he goes. Yeah, the one relic, really the one relic that I have to farm, not farm, but open is the Baruch Prime blueprint, so that's the Lith B5 rare. It's the last Prime part I need, and then I will have Baruch Prime, and therefore every Prime in the game, excluding Hildren Prime, who comes out next week. Because it's Monday. Oh god, it is Monday. I don't know why. This week has just been like the longest week. I don't know why. Just between like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Like it's just been a long week. Like it feels like this week has been going on for 2 weeks, if that makes sense. Give me affinity. Yeah, this exterminate not exterminate. Yeah, we're not getting a lot from this, which sucks. We could, oh man. Thanks for reminding me it's Monday. No problem. I need to remind myself every day, otherwise I'm gonna forget what day it is.
Stay focused. There's
A heavy unit?
robotic signature detected.
26, 24, 28. Not great. Yep, you gotta keep some form of like calendar. Don't want my days to slip away. Yeah, not the greatest in terms of affinity, especially because we're doing it solo. Huh. I could do Sanctuary Onslaught. I could. Just roll with that. Because this would be like, what, one zone? Wouldn't be bad. Yeah, we'll do some regular Sanctuary Onslaught. It'll be like a single zone, why not? Ooh, capture and rescue. Nice. Because I still have to get... I say have to. More like I want to see how many medallions I can get before Hildren Prom comes out. What a selection of frames we have here, huh? Fall into the void, spawning on the floor, just no enemy spawning, it's buggy. Luckily, I haven't had to experience that, but God, I can imagine how awful that would be of just, oh, I want to level shit. And then just the game says, no, you're not allowed. Is this a good tile? Not bad. There we are. Oh, this will also work for Eximus kills. Great, 2 birds, 1 stone. Please don't kill 2 birds. They're important keystone. Well, not keystone. But birds are an important part of our environment. They're not a keystone species. That's... Well, keystone species, that depends on the environment and the balance of things. Like, say at Yellowstone, the gray wolf is a keystone species, helping keep prey populations in check from overgrazing and harming other life. I should not know this. I mean, I say I shouldn't know this much. I wrote a paper on gray wolves for a class. It was my advanced composition class, so we were tasked with a species, or, well, we were tasked with, for this class, we were each given, like, a country. I had Germany, and for this paper, we basically selected a conservation issue, like, selected a species, and then, like, in the country, like, what is the conservation issue? And I chose gray wolves in Germany, and how, like, the conservation is because gray wolves, like, they had been returning to Germany after, I think it was 100 years of being extinct in the country, and it was coming into conflict with sheep and, like, sheep farmers, essentially, who were trying to protect their livestock. Like, fully understandable. And our mission was to, like, or the paper was about, like, oh, describe your species, like, what's the history behind them, what's the issue, what do you recommend to fix the issue, and then how will your recommendations, like, actually help. And I think it's one of my longest papers I've ever written. I think so. Well, besides the New War rewrite, but that's, like, I think it's my longest academic paper, I'll say, versus, like, fun writing. But it was a fun paper. I had a, like, I say fun, I mean, that's my degree, baby. Hard for me not to take an interest, like, you study what you love, and it's not that bad. Like, I know so many facts. Just say the word, you want to rant about, do you want to rant about prion diseases? I can do it. Oh man. Like, it's, like, study what you're, like, what's the thing, like, you, like, oh, fucking, what is it? if you do what you love for a job, you never work a day in your life or some shit. I think my version of that is like you study what you love, and it's so fascinating. School. Yeah, it be that way. Yeah. Okay, we need more in our Detron. Oh, down I go. So that's max rank. It's just our secondary that's not. I don't know if the Grey Wolf paper was my longest paper. It might be my second. I don't remember. But it was, oh god, I think 8 pages in total, and then I had like 13 sources. No, I had 2 pages worth of sources. I don't, oh man. Okay, try to go for the Eximus. We're not getting as much affinity, unfortunately, but that's fine. 27. Question what you discover. I know! Let me tell you, having a special interest, or like my sort of my, how do I describe this? Like my area that I like to study. Because like, it's on my Twitter. I have my degree in animal sciences. And sort of my sort of special interest, like what do I like to study, was epidemiology. Like I took so many like classes of just like studying diseases, studying their like route of transmission, route of infection, like incubation time, signs versus symptoms. Like it's, to me, so fascinating. Just, I guess it's not like, especially I was taking these classes while like a sort of global pandemic was happening. So it's just really interesting how the class changed. I know, oh man, I can tell this, I think it was fall 2020, so like, you know, that period in time when everything was like shut down, like we were all online, and I was taking like it was a course on like epidemics, infectious diseases, and like all that. So basically every lecture was talking about like, oh, a different like pandemic, different disease, like what's the history behind it, like are there treatments, what signs and symptoms. And let me tell you how interesting taking that in like fall 2020. Yeah, it affected a lot. But taking that fall 2020, and basically at the end of the lecture, we would go over like, oh, is there any risk for like future pandemics for this disease? Say like hantavirus, say Marburg, say yellow fever, measles, fucking any of those. And just when we got to SARS-CoV-2, which SARS-CoV-2, SARS-CoV-1, and then we did MERS. Is it MERS? God, my brain today. And just getting to the end of that lecture and just like, oh, is there a risk for a future pandemic with this? And just like, well, like this is awkward. Like even our professor was like, I made these slides last year. Whoops. Like that's just, God, do I love studying diseases? It's, to me, it's so interesting. Though also, some diseases haunt my waking nightmares. But that's a different story. That's on me of... Okay, I say haunt my waking nightmares. It's just one disease in particular that I studied, or I did a group presentation on, and it haunts me to this day. Are my weapons done? And it's purely because basically the presentation was in my advanced reproduction class. So like this was a 400 level class. And like each group was tasked with like a disease. And we were like to talk about like, oh, what's the history behind it? What's the mechanism? Because like this is a reproduction class. Like, how does, like, say if an animal eats something, how does that affect their reproductive tract? How does that like cause the issues that we see in reproduction or whatever? So my group had fescue toxicosis in horses, which also happens, it's in all ungulates, so that's cow, sheep, and all that. And that disease will haunt me. Because like, oh, my group members, like, I will say this was self-imposed. My group members, like, I chose to like look up like, oh, the history of the disease, like, oh, when was it first discovered, da-da-da-da-da, how was it discovered, like what research is going on. And then I also chose to do the like mechanism of infection. So how does fescue toxicosis, how does it come about? And it haunts me. Because like, oh, the other group members, they were doing like how do you treat it? How do you like, what are the signs, symptoms? What's the economic impact it has? Essentially, all that fun jazz. The history was easy. Fescue toxicosis, to the point, I think I made this, I think it was 2 years ago, this presentation was. I can still tell you, oh, this disease was first discovered in the 1970s, but it was found out in the 70s. But it started because a grass was being sold, Kentucky Blue or Kentucky 31, which is sold for its agronomic properties. Like, it haunts me. Like, it's sold for its agronomic properties, which means it grows really well, it's hardy in the winter, it lasts long in storage, all that fun jazz. This is turning into a lecture, and I'm all for it. But we're doing this because this is my interest. But basically, Kentucky Blue, it's this great grass, great for fields, great for animals to feed on. But in the 70s, it was found that it was causing issues in ungulates. Oh man, it was causing issues. You still need more. In that, specifically in horses, it was causing dystocia. So it would be prolonged gestation and then dystocia, which is difficult birth, which can lead to the death of the mother and the child. Very fun. Not fun at all. But it was found to be the glass. It's like I'm learning something. It was found to be the grass, which, despite its agronomic properties, the reason it has those agronomic properties is because the grass is infected by a fungal endophyte. So when episode 1 of The Last of Us said endophyte, I got fucking flashbacks to this. Hello! Hi, we're talking about fescue toxicosis because, yeah, if I have to suffer, everyone else has to suffer. But essentially, if I have to suffer, everyone else has to suffer with this information that I learned. But fescue toxicosis, it's a fungal endophyte, which is, it's a symbiotic relationship, so the fungal endophyte, like, it's fine, it keeps the grass healthy, but this fungal endophyte, it basically causes, like, when mostly pregnant mares eat it, it causes prolonged gestation and difficult births, and very, very dangerous, and I think it's vasoconstriction in the limbs as well. Man. But, like, it wasn't discovered until, like, the 70s and all that. But the thing is, like, I was tasked with looking up the mechanisms for, like, okay, it's something, like, the grass is something these, like, mares are eating. How is it affecting their reproductive tract? I do not have an answer. I looked up papers upon different research articles. Nobody fucking knows. the exact mechanism of infection. How does something they eat turn into, like, this difficulty in the reproductive tract? Who the fuck knows? Like, there is a reason why no one knows, but at the same time, it pisses me off. Essentially. And basically, the fungal endophyte is... Like, I will say, I looked up papers going back. Like, I had a paper from the 70s. I had an article and research from... Like, I had one from 77. I had one from 99. I had a paper from 2003. I had a paper from 2005. I had another one from 2012. And then one from 2017 and one from 2019. All of them said, we don't know the exact mechanism. So, trying to find the mechanism when papers dating back 50 years all say we don't know, it's so frustrating. We still don't know. The only explanation I got for, like, why we don't know the exact root of the exact mechanism of infection is that the fungal endophyte, to obtain the pure ergo-alkaloids that are in the fungus, it is just way too expensive to do. And because the treatment is easy, and, like, the treatment for, like, horses is just, you remove the pregnant mares from the endophyte infested pasture, like, and then there's also, like, different, like, medications you can give them. Not medication, but, like, medicine. Like, we don't really have to worry about it. So, it's just too expensive to do, and it's so easy to treat that no one cares to find answers to this, but I am cursed with forever not knowing why it happens. Just, there are theories. Like, I scraped together a bit about, like, the ergo-alkaloids which they look similar enough to, like, the chemical in the ergo-alkaloids. It's, oh man, if I can get this off of the top of my head, it's neotyphodium something. Oh man, I could probably look it up on my phone, because I bet I still have the slides. It's neotyphodium something, but that its structure is similar to LSD and ergovaline, and the theory is that it basically acts like progesterone in the pregnant mare, which causes them to carry longer and then causes the dystocia and the longer gestation period. But that's just a theory. Who actually knows? I don't. Like, I am still upset about it to this fucking day. I will never know. Because this was a, like, reproduction class too, like, I said in the presentation, like, hey, if any of you, like, go into researching, like, with horses and ever do, like, fescue toxicosis and figure this out, give me a call, because please, I want to know. Like, man. Like, it's just, man, fucking. Just how does something that these hindgut fermenters are eating affect their pituitary gland, their hypothalamus, and then in turn affect their reproductive tract? Who the fuck knows? We're at 26 on the Paragale. Looks like they're not going through. That's fair. But yeah, all of this to say, I like to study diseases, and when the disease doesn't make sense, fuck. Let's see. I could probably pull some of my notes. I think I do have them, because of fucking OneNote. Let's see. Where is OneNote? What? Where? That is not the right thing. What the fuck? There it is. I'm pulling out the notes. Today we're getting the professor. Oh, look at that. My feed and food analyses notes. Nope. Stop that. What class was this? Was the diseases? It was 251? Yeah, it was. Hell yeah. Yeah, it was epidemics and infectious diseases. So, like, we talked about, like, what is disease, like, microbiology, and, like, how did germ theory come about, like, the different types of pathogens, so, like, viral versus bacterial versus fungus versus a parasite, like, the different types of disease and how it can be local, systemic, acute, chronic. It could be multiple of those. It doesn't have to be just one. Yeah, the different levels of biosecurity was fun. And the different, like, cell types and how your immune system works. And, like, why you get some of the symptoms of, like, oh, when you have a cold, or, like, what is happening? Like, why do you get inflammation? And also, like, some useful advice of, like, the old wives' tale is actually true of feed a cold, starve a fever. So if you didn't know, feed a cold, starve a fever, it is true. Because for a bacterial infection, you do not want to force feed. So, like, for a fever, do not, like, force feed yourself glucose. For a viral infection like a cold, eat glucose. Get stuff in your body. And, like, why do we have fevers? Why do you stop eating when you're sick? And then why do you socially isolate when you're sick? Then we talked about smallpox, yellow fever, measles. Man, measles was so... Oh, man. Measles just makes me angry because it was so close to being, like, the second disease to be eradicated, and yet it's not. We talked about polio, influenza, which is an RNA virus. Talked about swine flu. Yeah, H1N1, H1N2, H3N2. And the different outbreaks there. Talked about cholera. Talked about the plague. Yeah, talked about SARS and MERS, which... Yeah, severe acute respiratory syndrome, SARS. I think, looking at my notes, yep, risk for another pandemic? ? SARS-CoV-2, our current pandemic. Ha ha ha. What fun. Where's my one? Because I had a thing that was super cool to say. Like, it's... Where is it? Oh, I can't find it. But it's a thing of... It's like the signs versus symptoms. So if you tested positive for COVID, like if you tested positive, but you have no symptoms, you did not have COVID. Because the disease is the symptoms. So if you tested positive, but you don't have symptoms, you just had SARS-CoV-2. If you have symptoms, you had COVID, essentially. And we talked about HIV and the AIDS epidemic, Ebola and Marburg, hantavirus, Lassa fever, West Nile, Zika, and then PRRS and PEDV, which PRRS is porcine reproductive and respiratory syndrome virus, porcine, and then PEDV is porcine endemic diarrhea virus, BVD and BRD, so bovine viral diarrhea and bovine respiratory disease, prion diseases, which I could talk at length about prion diseases. We're gonna do it, because, yeah, I think it was my freshman year. Also, I can tell that my headache went away. It was my freshman year public speaking class. That was it. And we were given, like, a topic to talk about, like, pretty academic. And I chose chronic wasting disease, which is a form of prion disease. It's similar to mad cow disease, scrapie. Those are all prion diseases. There's also in humans, there's two. There's Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, which is more spontaneous, and then there's Kuru, which is a result of cannibalism. But like, prion diseases are so, to me, it's so interesting because prion diseases, when they first were sort of discovered, it was almost heresy because it's a disease that breaks central dogma for like, oh, DNA, RNA to proteins. Like, okay, how is a protein causing these issues? Prion diseases are like, all it is, prion diseases are misfolded proteins. They cause other proteins to fold like them, so the incorrect shape. And then those proteins basically build up, and over time, the animal or the human just slowly wastes away. It's like, I know it, like, to me, like, it is morbid, but at the same time, it's so fascinating. Like, it's so interesting to me, like, oh, there's this disease, like, oh, it breaks, like, it was considered heretical, like, back when it was, like, first published about, like, proteins can't, like, what? Like, they can't do that. It's like, nope, they can. Our Paragale, come on. That is slightly concerning to hear. Yeah, it's nothing really to be worried about for prion diseases. Like I said, Kuru, unless you're eating people who are infected with Kuru, you're fine. And Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease is so incredibly rare. Like, it's not going to be an issue. Like, yeah, I did my public speech was on chronic wasting disease because it was sort of all the, like, news stations were like, oh my god, zombie deer disease. So obviously I opened that speech with zombies, science fiction or science fact, which actually, if you've seen The Last of Us, like, just the opening, yeah. Like, they talk about that one fungus that can take over, like, ants' bodies. Yeah. Oh, come on. I'm falling all over the place. Let's see what we got from this. Actually, what did our teammates bring? M4 Flawless, Intact, G9 Radiant. Sure. I don't need any more Forma blueprints. Yeah, oh, I do see all my notes on prion diseases. Hell yeah. Yeah, prion diseases, or they are transmissible spongiform encephalopathies. Bovine, it's bovine spongiform encephalopathy, and so on and so forth. Just the naming convention. And, like, Scrapie has been known, Scrapie in sheep, for 300 years. And it's just, it's concerning. It's widespread neurodegeneration. Basically, these prions leave big holes in your brain. And it's, oh. That's the symptoms. I'm not going to go into the symptoms because some of it is like dark, and, like, I'm not going to do that morbid. Yeah, Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. Yeah, it's caused by a single protein, and it was deemed heretical. Oh, it was 1972. Right, I see it. Yeah, it breaks central dogma, but protein is replicating into protein. It's like, huh. But it's caused by a misfolded protein. And yeah, long incubation period, so it's up to 10 years. It's like, fuck. Oh, and then, yeah, after that we talked about, like, chronic diseases. We talked about, like, cancer. More chronic diseases like MS, EBV, strep throat. I see strep throat. Yeah. Rheumatic fever is strep throat. And then we talked about the Irish potato blight. And how basically Britain were big assholes. Who could have helped, but they decided not to. Yeah, the attitude in Great Britain was laissez-faire, let the market run its course as people died. Yeah. Learning about diseases, you also see, like, the worst side of humanity, too, of, like, wow, smallpox was one of the first, like, biological weapons. Or, not biological weapons. It was the first... What is it called? Yeah, it's one of the first examples of biological warfare. Apart from, I think it was like in Prague? Like with plague victims, they were like vaulting them over the walls to hopefully infect the city. Like it's sort of one of the... Smallpox was like the modern equivalent. Essentially. This totally isn't dark. But I do feel that my ibuprofen has kicked in, so I'm a lot more awake now. And this is max rank. Nice! Okay, what next? This I already have leveled. What else is on our cleanup? You need 4 more levels. You need a Forma, which I only have the 1. I have so many fucking notes. Like, as it turns out, there's a lot of classes you could take in college for like, oh, I want to study this. It's like, oh, okay. You need 1. Yeah, we said we'd go from like top down, so you need like a single level, and then melee is done. I wish there was a faster way to get affinity. I'm just going into Sanctuary Onslaught and hoping. Those just need 1 level. It might just be worth it to go. But like, that's not to say like all disease studies, like, oh, it's so morbid. It's also super cool. Like, I mean, I wouldn't study it if it wasn't. Like, oh, talking about like SARS-CoV-2 and COVID. But like, thinking about like the scientific achievement that like is our current timeline. Like, we had the entirety of the RNA sequence of SARS-CoV-2 sequenced in a month. Some diseases, it took like centuries since they were first discovered. So like a month? Like, hell yeah. Just like all the improvements made to like just, I mean, all the improvements, like how like vaccines are made, like how, like the rigorous safety testing that they go through. It's just, it's so cool. Like how did we get the vaccine for smallpox? And the different like people who came forward with that. Like it's Edward Jenner, and then there's someone with the last name Jesty. I don't remember their first name. Whoops. I think it's just so interesting. Like, would I like to study all this in a, like, be living through a global pandemic? No. But, you know, it's just so cool. That's 34, so that's done. And then you just need... Oh, I think we're done. Oh. I did say 1 level each. Like, it was... College was great. Like, I took... Just for, like, fun, I took a class on Viking mythology, which was extraordinarily cool. And then I took a class on Grimm's Fairy Tales. And that, unironically, the Grimm's Fairy Tales, like, holy shit. It, like, sort of changes the way you see, like, it changes the way you see, like, not only these fairy tales, but, like, how telling fairy tales, like, they impact children, how they actually help develop our psyche and, like, turn us into responsible adults. And how, like, sort of withholding fairy tales is actually more dangerous for children than just telling them. So, like, the recent waves of parents going like, oh, those fairy tales are so dark, I would never tell my children that. Like, no, fairy tales are so good for your children's development because it gives them a logical fantasy. It gives them worlds that conform to their worldview. And, like, giving your kid, like, religious texts, actually one of the worst things you can do for your kid's development. Like, it's... that class, I fell in love with. Like, I was so upset when that, like, when I finished that class, because I was like, man, it was so good. But, like, focusing on, like, how these fairy tales, like, were modernized, like, what tales, like, specifically we were, like, talking about, like, Grimm's fairy tales, so, like, how the Grimms modernized the tales, like, what did they leave out? What did they leave in their stories? Like, why? And, like, we talked about it from, like, a psychoanalytical, like, standpoint, from a... we did psychoanalytical, and then another one. I'm gonna check my notes after this. But, like, that class was so cool. Like, I think I still... I do! I have my... notebook. Not notebook, but... I have my notes on my computer. I have the textbook that we got from that class. There's... because there's, like, we've talked about, like, Bruno Bettelheim versus, like, Jack Zipes and their methods of looking at fairy tales. Let me find it. There it is. Yeah, we're just gonna talk about this class now because this is just story time versus... no, story time, like, class time with me. Yeah, a fairy tale, it just has a way of getting into your head before you hear it. Like, think about, like, fairy tales. Somehow, you just know it. Like, how? Like, we rethink or think again about things we experienced in the past or think we did. We narrate these experiences in our present minds and we storytell our lives. And in doing so, we reshape the past. Yeah, fairy tales are overt fictions. Their narratives relate to facts, both social, historical, and psychological fact. And yeah, we talked about, like, the Enlightenment and the Romanticism. And then we talked about, like, the Juniper Tree. Which, Juniper Tree is a fucking weird story. It doesn't feel like it's a fairy tale. But when we dissected that story, it was like, no, this is talking about, like, societal norms. Like, what? Oh, geez, this is so zoomed in. How do I zoom out? View, I would like to zoom out, please. Oh, God. Yeah, we talked about, like, Little Red Riding Hood, which one of the ways it was modernized technically made it worse. Yeah, so the fairy tales were... the Grimms wrote the fairy tales to create German cultural unity, since political unity was not a possibility, through Deutsche Märchen, or German fairy tales, and then they translated them into a High German that created a shared cultural past. Yeah, appealing to the notion that the past was almost better or more communal, like you're sitting around the stories. Just remember Grimm instead of the actual fairy tales. Fair. But, like, the cultural past of, like, oh, sitting around a campfire telling stories. And then Little Red Riding Hood is about controlling female sexuality, like, actually. Yeah, so what happens when you break the rules to control and protect female sexuality? Because before, like, Little Red Riding Hood was all, like, the blame was on the wolf. Like, the wolf, it's like, it was his actions, like, that's why he gets cut up, gets killed at the end of the story. Versus the Grimms, they added a passage where like, Red Riding is talking to herself of never again will you go into, like, blaming herself. Yeah, the wolf is not mentioned in the moral. It's blaming her. And it's a thing of, essentially, it's the panopticon. So you're taking the law into yourself, which you need to do in a society. Like, it's like, what? And also a big thing that the Grimms did when they reworked their fairy tales is removing a lot of violence. They left in violence, but they removed, like, sexual themes. And it's basically because, like anything sexual, it muddies the water. They wanted their fairy tales to be as clear as possible. Who is the perpetrator? Like, who is the victim? Who is the evildoer? Like, what? Just, it was so fascinating. Like, we were talking about how, like, really no one's favorite fairy tale is, like, Sleeping Beauty. Like, why? Because it's so passive. Literally, she does nothing. She pricks her finger, falls asleep, wakes up. Why do we tell this story? Which, there is a whole second part after Sleeping Beauty wakes up that deals with a not the stepmother, but the mother-in-law being an ogre and trying to eat their children, which fucking was wild to learn about that being a thing. Like a cannibalistic ogre mother-in-law. I wish I was joking, but that all got cut. But we talked about, like, oh, why do we still tell Sleeping Beauty? Like, there's no moral. Literally, all she does is go to bed or go to sleep for 100 years, and then she wakes up and her life's better. And we talked about, like, for kids, actually, yeah, it's cannibalistic ogres. It's wild. It is nuts, the different versions when you dig into history. But for kids, Sleeping Beauty is still important to them because on a, like, we can't, like, all of this, we can't confirm or deny that it helps kids. Like, it's, like, very much a thing of, like, we can't confirm it, but, like, we can theorize about it. But that Sleeping Beauty, in being so passive, it reaffirms the child that even after a period of isolation and loneliness, it's still an important story to tell the children, because at the end of that darkness, at the end of their isolation, they'll still have family. They'll still have the people they care about. Like, their family, the ones they love, will always come save them, no matter how long it takes, even if it's 100 years of sleep. Like, obviously, we cannot confirm this, cannot deny it, but, like, that paints that story in such a different light of, like, oh, it's not just this passive story. Like, this reassures the child, hey, you may be alone right now, you may be helpless because you're sleeping, but eventually you will become the monarch. Like, that's why monarchy is such a, like, sort of big thing. Like, why does every fairy tale end with the, like, becoming a princess, becoming a prince, or king, or what have you? Because it's a metaphor for the child gaining agency over their own life. They will make decisions for themselves. No one can boss them around. No one can hurt them anymore. Also, what a fucking song to, like... Yeah, what a song timing! What the fuck? What are they doing? Like, that's why all these fairy tales, like, end with them becoming princes, princesses, kings, queens, because then they have agency. Nobody can hurt them. They're adults. 32 and 38. Is that done? I think it is. Like, it recontextualizes, like, how you look at these stories. And then Snow White's a big one that's like, oh god. It's like, yeah. I see. I have these notes. But like we talked about how like children's stories, they need magic. They need to have worldviews that align with the child's own, in that, oh, to us adults, animals don't talk. The forest, it's not like there are animals out there, like the trees don't talk to us, like, but to a kid, animals do talk to them. The forest is alive. They can talk to the trees. The river is flowing, so why isn't it alive? I'm on my Rapunzel notes of that. Where's my... Yeah, the child's need for magic. Of, like, why religious texts fail for children is because it doesn't make sense to them, not according to their worldview. Like, they need magic. Like, they need to feel justified in their circumstances. Like, these stories need to validate the children's feelings, especially when you're a kid. Your emotions are all over the place. Like, it's confusing being a kid. Like, your emotions go to very much extremes. Like we talked about, like the super ego, and the id, and all that. Yeah, in fairy tales, rule breaking brings success. It brings happiness. They're standing up, like the heroes, they're breaking rules, but it brings them happiness, brings them joy. They're standing up against what is unfair. Yeah, fairy tales bring order to the internal chaos. And then more modern tellings of these stories, like modern adaptations, can be damaging because they uphold the status quo at the end. It doesn't break it. Oh, here's the Sleeping Beauty. I see it. Let me see. Yeah, we talked about the archetypal plot. Yeah, that's Sleeping Beauty. Like, it's hard to, like, psychologically analyze it, but we can. What's on this page? Oh, this is Snow White, and oh god, Snow White is darker than you think! Because if you didn't know, Snow White, the evil witch is Snow White's... It's not mother-in-law, it's stepmother. The evil queen is Snow White's stepmother. Yeah, so it's... let me see... Yeah, the Grimms took these classic, like, monsters, which they were monsters. They were cannibals, ogres, enchantresses, and almost made them scarier in a way of, by modernizing the tales, modernizing these monsters, they made them more domestic. So they turned them into stepmothers, the mother-in-law. Like, that's why you see, like, so many, like, oh, the wicked stepmother. At one point in the story, those were probably, like, an evil enchantress, but, like, by modernizing the stories, they brought the monster closer to the heart, like, closer to the child. Like, what? Yeah, these monsters are now in your house, instead of just, oh, out in the woods somewhere. They're in your house. Yeah, in the 1812 version of not Sleeping Beauty, Snow White, the mother's vanity and pride, so just the mothers, like, it's not the stepmother, it's the mothers, turns her into an ogre. In 1819, it's a stepmother. And it's like, we talked about, like, it's such a huge thing in, like, fairy tales and, like, all these stories of, like, oh, why are the parents dead? Specifically, why is, like, say, the mother replaced, and then there's a stepmother? Because it's important for the, like we said, it's important for the hero or heroine's psychological development and for their actions. And it also permits the story to move forward. But also, why do we have the wicked stepmother over and over and over and over? Because for children, they need that. They need that substitution. The stepmother is bad because she is a substitute for the biological mother. And it is a substitute for the incestuous father, which was also in old stories. But cannibalism and it's incestuous father and the cannibalistic mother had to be taken out because in society, cannibalism, incest, that is not things a society can have to be civilized, so they have to be taken out to be civilized stories. But like, why is the stepmother still evil? They need to be. Like, children need that logical fantasy of that separation between their mother and like their stepmother. It's important. In fact, because say you're like a little kid, like 2 years old, 3 years old, like this is my mother. Like I love her with my whole heart. But suddenly she's acting mean. How do you, like, who is this? Like you're like the mother, they know, like you know, would never act like this. She's always so nice, so gentle, so kind. Like, what is happening? Like, so the logical, obviously, once again, no way to prove that children do this because it's sort of hard to ask. But like the logical fantasy is, oh, that's not my mother. That's an evil shape-shifting alien. But it soothes the child of, okay, that's not my mother, the mean one. That's an evil alien. Oh, that's the wicked stepmother. Don't worry, my real mother is still there. She still loves me. Like, it's fine. So by the mother dying and becoming the evil stepmother, these children are able to preserve the image of the good mother in their mind. And it doesn't create confusion, which real life is fucking confusing. Just, oh, my mother loves me, but like, why is she yelling at me? Like, I don't get it. So it lets the child like say like, oh, that's not my mother, but it is, but it's not. And it suits them. Like that's big reason why we get the evil stepmother. So the child, like, we get the replacement for the evil mother, but the good mother, the image is never like tarnished. They keep that. God, I hope we find the general insignia. Like, it's so interesting. Like, oh man. And like how children, like we were talking about, like in one of our reading passages, because there was a fair bit of reading for this class, of like children, like they can't be taught like what to think. It's sort of like, how do I explain this? Of if you tell children they're making, like, oh, you're building the solar system. Like, I think there was this research study, like, they were so fascinated, like, oh, we're building the solar system. Like, it was just a model. But to them, they thought, like, oh, when we're done, like, they were holding the solar system. All of the planets, the moons. But then immediately they told, like, oh, no, it's just a model. Like, oh, you couldn't possibly hold that. The children became disinterested. They didn't care. Basically trying to force children to like grow up, to give up, like children need to give up their fantasies on their own. They cannot be rushed into it. Otherwise that can have severe psychological effects later in life. They need to face the reality at their own. Like you can't force reality on children, essentially. Like they need to come to terms with it at their own pace, otherwise it can be dangerous later down the line. Yeah, we can go in. Kuva Kraken is nearly done. There's one more. Nope. There we go. Oh, come on. Okay, thank you. I was gonna say, if I have to go through all of this and it's the 5th one, I'm gonna cry. 30 and 33, which I think is done. But after this mission, I'll return to the notes and see. Like, man. But we're talking, like, just... Like, I think it's one of the first questions, like, children, like, ask themselves, or, like, this is, like, baby territory, is the mirror test, or the mirror stage, where children, like, can see themselves in a mirror. And they're, like, starting to ask questions. Like, obviously, this is, like, toddler level. Like, we're not going to have any memories of doing this. Like, where they start asking, they see themselves in the mirror, and it's just, they start recognizing, oh, this is me. This is who I am. Who am I, then? And, like, how that is an important milestone for kids. Just recognizing themselves in a mirror. And, like, seeing themselves, like, they're in a mirror. They're strong. They're independent. They're standing by themselves, in most cases, like, in front of that mirror. They're alone, but they're strong. Like, for the first time, like, they're not just an extension of their parents. They are an individual. Also, we got all 8 medallions. Very nice. Yeah, we talked about the Oedipal conflict. Yeah, the wicked stepmother. Yeah, children can split apart and make a logical fantasy to soothe themselves and ease and cope. God, I can't read my own handwriting. Yeah, Bettelheim is our stories reflect our psyches, and Zipes, our stories shape our psyche. So it's not my mother is, it's my mother, and it's not my mother. Mother is, in a sense of the word, both the person and the idea of what mother is. And also, Snow White is pretty dark in the fact, like, oh, there's no, like, father. There's just the, like, magic mirror. Technically, the voice of the king is the mirror. That's society's voice telling... Okay, this is gonna need some explanation of, like, why the stepmother is evil versus, like, oh, why Snow White is pure and good. But, like, basically, Snow White is sort of doomed to eventually either die or become the evil stepmother. Because when we're first introduced to the mother, she's staring out a window, seeing the world. The evil queen, she's looking in a mirror, looking at herself, looking at all her flaws. Like, mate, like, oh man, it's... Snow White, when you dig into it, is fucking weird. Oh, we talked about Bluebeard, and that was a fucking weird... If you ever have a chance, never read Bluebeard. It's... Yeah, then we read The Bloody Chamber, which, oh man. It's... Like, there's a reason Bluebeard was cut from the Grimm's Fairy Tales, and I agree. Because, as I said, the Grimms wanted to get rid of, like, any moral ambiguity. It needs to be clear-cut who the perpetrator and who the victim is in their fairy tales. Yada, yada, yada. Bluebeard got cut because it's really weird of that... I could sort of spoil it, but the heroine is a victim, but of her own curiosity, and the perpetrator, the husband, is a perpetrator, but because his wife was curious. But also, it doesn't work because Bluebeard fundamentally shows, like, you don't want to tell this to kids, but, like, the marriage itself in Bluebeard was the catalyst of the story going wrong. So, you know, it makes sense why they sought to get rid of that story. Like, we did also touch on, like, the anti-Semitic tales, and, like, how, like, they differed from, like, your typical fairy tale. And like, why we did go over like, wow, these are really problematic. Like, fuck. Oh, we gotta go try to get our medallions. It's like, man. Oh, I can hold this down. I see. I've been using it. Oh, I've been like using it almost like a burst fire. Whoops. Like I've been doing this. Okay, that's 1. Okay, that's 2. 34 and 30. I think they're both done. That's where we came from. This is where we're going. I forget what other stories we talked about. We talked about like the Sandman, which was fucking bizarre. That story I still don't understand. I don't get it. Do not read it. Like I don't remember who it's by. There's so like there's different versions. It's fucking. Did we go backwards? I did. I've been led astray. I went backwards.
Stay focused. There's a heavy unit approaching.
We need some more energy. Thank you. Yes. So yeah. Yeah, we may go longer with stream today, because how long have we been live? Already an hour, over an hour? Yeah, because I said an hour. My ibuprofen has kicked in, so I'm vibing now. This way we have to go check out. There's not going to be a medallion down there. That's just an out-of-bounds plane. Trying to think about what other fairy tales we talked about. We talked about Rapunzel and all that. Trying to think of what other fairy tales we talked about in that class without having to check my notes. Snow White. We did a little bit of Cinderella. Like, man, if I wouldn't go back to college to, like, take that class again, because that'd be a tremendous waste of money, but, like, I wish I could experience that class over again. It was so fun. I need energy. One of you fuckers give it to me. Or not. I'll just suffer. Suffer with breaking every crate until I get some energy. Gotta go this way. Hey, found the general. Nice. 5,000, and then we have 2 more. And then I do have another rant, which I can do. This one could be more relevant for a project. This will be our next rant. For a project for my, like, I think it was like a microbiology or just like, oh god, what was that class called? It was a biology course. So like talking about like cells and all that shit. This was another group project where my group focused on the like history of fats, their like nutritional requirements, like how they've evolved over time, the research of fats, like because this had to be it had to be a scientific thing. And then like we did like the agricultural sources and like the impact that like sort of fats have on society, and we talked about the keto diet. So that'll be our next rant, is why the keto diet does not work and no one should really do it, but consumers make it seem like the best thing in the world, even though it's not. That'll be our next rant after we finish up the fairy tale rant. Well, not rant, but like deep dive. Yeah, I didn't oh, we're at 7 out of 8. Fuck. No, fuck it. We leave at 7 out of 8. We still got the 5,000. It's fine. Let me see. Yeah, that's Bluebeard. Oh, geez. Oh, here's all the, like, anti-Semitic tales. I see. Yeah, that's Dear Millie we talked about. Yeah, how fairy tales are sort of timeless, but both time-bound. Of, like, these stories will forever, like, be told. Like, they're timeless. They could take place, like, at any time. But at the same time, these stories are sort of fixed in, like, oh, some fairy tales, like, they're sort of fixed in the, like, medieval period, for example. Oh, we talked about the Goose Girl and, like, intro to psychoanalysis. So, like, yeah, the mirror phase, the Oedipal conflict, and then, like, getting recognition. I need to zoom in. Why is this so zoomed out? Why did I write so small? Yeah, recognition. So, like, these are the phases that we go through. Yeah, the greatest fear, according to Bruno Bettelheim, is that, or the greatest fear or threat is that the fear of being alone. So separation anxiety, loss, longing. And that's like how fairy tales help, is we're never alone. At the end of all the trials, the hero, they get their happy ending. They're not alone. They're monarchy. They have control over their life. All that. And how we deal with these fears, we project, we displace, we substitute, we repress, and we deny. In fantasy or in reality. And then we also deal with it by dreaming. The Goose Girl is about achieving autonomy. And then we talked about, yeah, the tales they omitted. Like, there's some, like, series of dark events with no happy endings. So, like, some of these stories that, like, were omitted, like, one of them I have right here is, like, oh, how some children played at slaughtering. That is the title of the story. There's no happy ending, nothing. It is dark. And they booted it from the 2nd edition, and all future editions, it was only in 2. Yeah, it sheds light on the way that we as adults construct ideas about what childhood is and what it means. So, like, children play, like, but they're playing, like, a slaughtering game. So, like, we as adults construct an idea about childhood. So, like, we draw memories of our own childhood, which are often unreliable. Like, we rely on cultural assumptions about childhood. We use text, we use films, and then media portrayals, and then experience with actual children. But like, we construct an idea about, like, what childhood is like, and having kids kill and murder and do all these things contradicts it. Oh, there's the Sandman. God, what a weird story, the Sandman. And Egbert the Blonde, and just how that related to the Sandman. Like, just don't read the Sandman. It's weird. Like, fuck. So we did those syndicate missions. What else do we have? We still have Nightwave to do. Then relics. I don't. There's a really. Ooh, exterminate. Oh, it's a meso. God damn it. Do have to keep cleaning up. That's at 35. Fuck. We talked about, like, Beauty and the Beast. Yeah, Cinderella. Yeah, and how we talked about Disney, the recent, like, adaptations of, like, oh, they'll turn them from, like, just the stories, like, oh, they have, like, the old classic films, like, why these sort of live action adaptations fail. This isn't done either? And basically these live action remakes, they fail solely because they didn't need to make them. The live action remakes of the animated remakes of fairy tales, they're more responses to the criticisms of the films they are remaking instead of just being a remake. So like the Beauty and the Beast remake, like the live action version, it got criticism for like, oh, being too feminist, of like, oh, Belle's teaching these kids to read, and then the townspeople are all like, ugh. Like, it's an element that's not in the original story, not in anything. So why did they put it there? Well, because parents, most likely, the original Beauty and the Beast film came out, they complained about like, oh, Belle has no agency, it's all that, like, so like that's why these films fail. Like, we don't need them, but also they put in things like they're not in the original story, and they just feel they're not in the original story, and just what? Like, kids don't really care? Oh god, that's the end of those notes. Oh my. I know our next rant was about to be... What did I say it was going to be? Oh yeah, the keto diet and how it doesn't work. So, let me see if I can find this class. What was it called? Because I have all these notes on my computer. It was cellular metabolism. That was what it was. So my group was the history and research of fats, like the agricultural sources, like what are like unsaturated versus saturated fats, polyunsaturated fats, all that jazz. There's a list capture. Hell yeah. I have void traces. But essentially, like, we were doing that, and then like we had to include like in our presentation, okay, how does this like tie into like anything important? Like, we're talking about like fats, nutritional requirements. How is this important in our day-to-day life? And we chose to focus on like the keto diet, like how it affects it. So I was tasked with opening the presentation. I did the history of like, oh, when did like we find like basically when like were the first like fats like sort of used, like in using like archaeological data and all that jazz to, you know, like using archaeological data, all that to find like, oh, the first record of like fats being used was this, what was it used for, and then the research of it. And then I went over like the history of nutritional requirements, so like how they changed over the years, like, oh, who publishes the, like who oversees like the nutritional requirements, all that. And then we talked about like, oh, like that was my part of the presentation, like. But then we talked about like just the science of like what are fats, all that. And like obviously this presentation is not as clear to me as like say when we were talking about the fescue toxicosis, solely because it's, as I said, I like to study diseases, so that one stuck in my head more. Plus the mystery of why fescue toxicosis will plague me forever, so more people are going to have to suffer it because I'm talking about it now. But my other group still paid attention. Like, obviously, we did it as a group project. We're still paying attention to, like, their parts and, like, okay, we're, like, where do we get linoleic acid? Where do we get oleic acid? Linolenic? All that. And, essentially, the part that, like, we're going to talk about is the keto diet. It was originally made, I think, in the 1910s to treat epilepsy. And that is by using a combination of, like cutting out carbohydrates and basically being mostly proteins and fats. So it's like mostly used to treat epilepsy. It's not really used that much today to treat epilepsy because there are like medications, there's different treatments today. But this was like 100 years ago. What have you. Also, fucking hell, we didn't get it, but we'll go again and see if we can. But essentially the keto diet is dangerous, and it's so rigorous that you're not going to see, like, if you're doing it for weight loss, you're not going to see results, because the weight loss you are experiencing on the keto diet is purely water loss. And essentially, it makes you feel like shit because you're making your body undergo gluconeogenesis and ketogenesis instead of its normal function, your body's normal route of functioning when you eat. Basically, you're starving your body because you're removing carbs, which you need for glycogen. So your body is in fact taking from your own glycogen stores in your body. And a lot of times that's why you feel like shit on the keto diet, because you are basically starving yourself, and because glycogen plays a role in some water binding, not a lot, the weight you are losing is water loss. And basically the keto diet is super rigorous. It's not worth it. Especially, I will say a disclaimer, if you are diabetic, do not do a keto diet as it can cause ketoacidosis and death. So, basically, if you're gonna do a diet, hey, talk to your doctor first. Like keto diets, they're so rigorous. I think it's like the goal for like a healthy, like I think it's adult male or something, like average adult male is like less than 200 grams of carbs a day, which is not healthy. You need carbs. And it's sort of the thing we were talking about, how the public perception of fats and carbs have sort of switched. Because before it was like, oh, you have the food pyramid where it's like, oh, you have fats at the top, so you're supposed to consume less fats, which is still true. You're not supposed to just have, like, a shit ton of fat every day. Like, yeah. But there's a reason, like, carbohydrates are pretty close to the bottom on the, like, food pyramid. But, like, how in, like, the public perception, like, how, like, with the keto diet, it's flipped to being like, oh, carbs, especially with the obesity epidemic, like, how they're, like, carbs, that word has almost been, like, demonized. Of, like, oh, it's carbs. Like, that's just carbohydrates. CHO. Carbon, hydrogen, tiny bit of oxygen. Just carbon and hydrogens in long chains. But it's just interesting to see that, like, flip. Like, if you see stuff for, like, when you go to the store and buy keto stuff, save your money. Just don't. Don't do the, like... Plus, another thing with the keto diet, we do not know the long-term impacts of someone being on a keto diet. And it's better to be safe than sorry. Like, we still don't know the long-term impacts of someone, like, living on a diet, like, that restricts essential carbohydrates and glucose from their system. We don't know yet. So just play it safe. Just don't. Oh my goodness, that scared me. Thank you for the follow. Following while I'm just disparaging the keto diet. I see. But yeah, essentially, do not do it. It's not worth it. We don't know enough about the diet. It's not safe. Like 200 grams of carbs. Like, it's not carbs, it's carbohydrates. What other rants can we go on? Because I still have my notes open. God damn it, we didn't get it. We're still gonna try for the Baruch Prime part while we're on these rants. We're still gonna go for it. What other topics do I have in my old college notes to rant from? Oh, I know what I could do. Because this is the internet. I took animal behavior. I took 2 separate classes for that. But animal behavior, very interesting. Like how, I know, like with runaway selection, that's fucking weird. The one thing I can say for certain, because this is the internet and I would like to spread facts instead of fiction, If anyone believes in like the alpha male shit, fuck off. That shit's not real. There's like, this is my degree. I studied this. Like, this is like, I went to college for this. I have my bachelor's in animal sciences. The alpha male shit, the people who originally published that, they took it back because they said it was not it was not representative. It was only in captive wolves, not actual like wild wolves. That shit does not exist. The like pack hierarchy of like you have the alphas, the omegas, all that shit, completely incorrect. Does not exist in the wild. The reason they're basically the pack hierarchy as it stands instead, the pack hierarchy, it is a thing. I'm not gonna lie there. It is a thing. There is a hierarchy, but it's not what they said in the paper, which has since been retracted as saying it has no legitimate basis for like behavior. Like the researchers themselves took back their work and said, yeah, no, we fucked up with this one.
Stay focused. There's a heavy unit approaching.
But the internet is just hell-bent on like, no, this is a thing. It's like, it's not a thing. The pack hierarchy that is seen in wolves, there are 2 wolves that lead the pack. Why? Because they're the parents. Everyone else in the pack is their kid. That's the pack hierarchy. You have the parents and the kids. None of that alpha male fucking the strongest rules the pack shit. It's the parents that rule. Just none of that shit. Get that information out of here. Fuck that. Also, please can we get this fucking neuroptics? Or not neuroptics, get this blueprint. Please. Just, if anyone tries to tell you any bullshit about them being an alpha male, tell them that those statements are built on lies and research that is not proven at all. Just, no. It's not a thing. Like, fuck. That is the one bane of my existence. Like, you see it online and it's like, no. Stop it. No, we are not listening to no. No. I know we're just listening to random lo-fi songs. No. Oh wait, no, they're at 8. Wait. Yeah. Oh god, I didn't notice they were at 8. Holy shit. Oh god. Yeah, let them get their void traces. I'm the only one with a B10. Oh, I was wrong. I was thinking it was a Lith B5. It's a Lith B10. Whoopsies. Yeah, let the baby... Oh, they're a baby mag, too. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, let them get that real quick. What other rants can we go on? Because I'm enjoying the... I am enjoying the, like, academic rants. I get to show off, like, what I learned in college. It's fun. It's like, I got a degree in this. I have so much information bouncing around. I have so many notes. Like, I'm gonna talk about it. They're 1 away. They're trying their best. They'll get it. I believe. What else is there? Oh, I could also talk about how hunting can be used, like it sort of seems weird, but hunting can be used as a form of conservation, actually. This is just this is just vitamins and minerals and just energy and nutrient calculations and creating diets. Like, man, are we just go back? What? They're not the one. What is happening? I don't know. We're still going on our notes. Like how I never want to do, because I had to do these of where you calculate like a feed. So like, oh, calculate, like do proximate analyses. So like calculating, okay, this diet has this, how much crude protein, how much ether, calculating the moisture content. I never want to do these calculations again, unless it's on a dry matter basis. Because as is fucking sucks. Because doing an as is calculation, you have to get rid of the water because, well, that messes with your numbers. It dilutes what you have because it's water. They're still at 9 out of 10. Oh my goodness.
Stay focused. There's a heavy unit approaching.
We're just gonna chill here. Be patient. He's new, I think. Yeah, like doing dry matter. Like if I'm gonna ever do these calculations again, which I hope I never have to do it on a dry matter basis. Holy shit. It's so much easier. That's that class. Oh, we also talked about... So smart. Oh man, I'm tempted to say no, I'm not, but you know what? I have enough self-confidence to say I am smart. But we talked about like responsible dog breeding. So like there is a thing about like, oh, adopt, don't shop. But really, it's just you want responsible dog breeders. You don't want to buy from a puppy mill. Like it is okay to breed a dog or buy like purebreds. Especially just you want it to be from a reputable breeder. And we talked about like the different facets of like what is a responsible breeder. Like if you're going to go that route, like obviously if you can adopt from a shelter, but at the same time, shelters are sort of more up in the air of like the temperament, like what breed of dog you're getting, which not all dog breeds fit every lifestyle. So you want to do your research. You want to do your research on like, does like this dog, does it fit your lifestyle? All that. Like, are you like gonna be active? They despawned. Oh no. Just extract. Yeah, I mean, I'm down with that. Unlucky. But yeah, there are arguments to be like, hey, support a responsible breeder, because you want to support breeders who like, say, breeding away from harmful breed standards, like specifically with brachycephalic dogs. So, oh god, we can talk about brachycephalic dogs now, because I remember that rant. But brachycephalic dogs, or brachycephalic obstructed airway syndrome, is basically the dogs with those like, dogs and cats with those like super smushed in faces, which is not healthy. It is very detrimental to their health, to their sleep, because even though they have a smaller snout, a smaller face, holy shit, we got it. We're good. But now I have every Baruch, every prime in the game once this finishes building. Also really unlucky for the little baby mag that they didn't get this. But the brachycephalic dogs in particular, and cats, they still have the same amount of teeth. They still have the same amount of like tissue in their throats. They can't breathe. So if you ever see those like dog videos of like, oh, it's a little pug and they're snoring in their sleep, and like all the comments are like, oh my god, that's so cute. Oh my god, they're snoring. No, Karen, that dog can't breathe. They are often waking themselves up. They have to sleep standing up. And then they can't, because they can't fall asleep lying down because they can't breathe. And like brachycephalic dogs, like when they're coming out from anesthesia, because you have to put a tube down their throat so they can breathe, they take longer because they're feeling what it's like to breathe properly. And it's so disgusting that like, why is that the breed standard? Like, just... So like if you're gonna get like a brachycephalic dog like from a breeder, like try to make sure they're breeding away from the standard, giving them their snout back. Like also, those dogs are expensive. They have shorter lifespans because of their breathing issues, and just it's just sad. Like they cost money. Like if you want them to breathe better, you need to get surgery for that. Like brachycephalic, like try to find a breeder that's breeding away from the standard. Same things with German Shepherds. They have issues with their backs. But like you want to support breeders that are breeding away from those harmful breed standards. Like, oh, maybe, yeah, you want a functional sight hound or whatever. Yeah, like ask your breeder, like, what is your goal in breeding these? Why these two why these parents? Why are you breeding them? Like, how do you determine what is a puppy mill versus an ethical breeder? Like, price doesn't indicate quality of your dog. Like, so like, don't look at price when buying a dog. Like, what is the different health test? Because for certain breeds, there are health tests that the breeder, like, they have to make sure their pets go through. Like, can you meet the mother? Can you see where the pups will be living with? Like, can you meet the father? Can you meet the siblings? Oh, do they refer to other breeders? If they say like, no, you can't, only meeting at a neutral site, why? Question them. Why can't we do a home visit? Why can't we see where these puppies are going to be raised for the first few weeks of their life? How are they going to socialize the puppies? Are they going to be around children? Are they going to be around other dogs? Around other, like, animals, like cats? So, like, there's a lot. But, like, you want to support these breeders. Like, you want a responsible breeder. Like, it's okay. Like, oh, adopt, don't shop. It's okay to shop. Like, I know before entering college, I was very much a adopt, don't shop. Like, especially with the rates of, like, euthanasia and all that, like, which is getting better. But, like, after, like, seeing, like, you can have a responsible breeder. You can shop, basically, adopt and shop. Like, instead of just being adopt, don't shop, it can be adopt and shop responsibly. Don't get a dog you can't care for. Don't adopt pets as to give presents. Because, God, fucking, especially since Easter is coming up, people are gonna buy rabbits for presents and then they don't take care of them, and it's, yeah, if you're gonna go to a breeder, there are some questions, and I have them right here. How long have you been breeding for? What are your breeding goals? Why this pairing? Why this breeding? What happens if things don't work out? A reputable breeder will have a return policy that no matter how old, how long it's been, they will take their pets back if something happens. If you find a breeder and they're like, oh no, it's no returns ever. Yeah, rabbits as gifts. But like, people will gift like, oh, like, I don't get why people gift like pets. Like, oh, my mother-in-law got us a puppy, and then they're like, we can't afford to feed the puppy. It's like, oh man. Yeah, but a good breeder should have a 100%, like, no matter how long it's been, they will have a return policy. They will take that pet back. Then, like, what's their vaccine schedule? Are they microchipped? Like, do you do early neurologic stimulation? So do you have, like, what does the socialization process look like for you? Yeah, ENS is important for socialization. It encourages a stable temperament and adapt to changes into their environments well. So basically, that's just, you want to socialize dogs so they're a family dog instead of a resident dog. Yep, and then, yeah, how do you find a good breeder? That's word of mouth and international breed clubs. What else? Oh, that's just like cell stuff in biology. I see. That's that. Oh yeah, that's like animal law. I did take a half semester class on animal law, so just dealing with like what do animals, like, what is that under like a legal perspective? Like what is an effective policy? Like what's like criminal versus civil like law? Like what are statutes, regulations, ordinances, common law? That's cellular metabolism. That is the infectious diseases, which we already talked about. This is my advanced repro class, which is fucking very interesting. What is this about? Oh, 305. Oh, this was like issues in animals. Oh, wow. So that's like, we could get into like anthropomorphization and how it's so dangerous to animals. Like classical anthropomorphism, so we're assigning human characteristics to non-human animals, which that is a thing of like anthropodenial, of the idea that humans are superior. We share no traits with animals. So it's so easy to say, oh, humans and animals, as though we are two separate things, instead of the truth of humans and non-human animals. Humans are still animals. And like we need to look at the, we need to look at like animal issues through like an animal lens, through their Umwelt, that's it. Of, you see your dog laying on the couch all day. You think, oh, it's just they're lazy. Like if my life, I just woke up and ate and that's all I did all day, like laid on the couch, I'd be so happy. When really it could be that dog laying on the couch all day, they're bored. They have nothing to do. Their mental needs aren't being met. But because you're viewing it through the human lens of, oh, I would love to laze around on the couch all day, you don't see that. Of like, that's a bored dog. They're not being like physically stimulated, not being mentally stimulated, because that is very important. And how in recent years, sort of how we look at animal issues, like with animal welfare. Oh, that's another topic I want to bring up, animal welfare and animal rights, because it's not as clean cut as you think. But like how over the years we adapted from, I think it was the 5 freedoms of animal welfare to the 5 domains. So like the 5 freedoms talk about like, oh, like animals, like they should have freedom from hunger, freedom from thirst, like freedom to express themselves. But it changed to the 5 domains as a way to like sort of not only focus on the negative aspects of their life. So like, oh, freedom from like just being abused. But it changed to the 5 domains to focus on like, well, what is like not just avoiding the negatives of life, but instead, how do we let animals live a positive experience? Like, what does that look like too? Not just focusing on like, oh, like the bare minimum to keep away from a negative. How do we embrace positives? What did everyone bring? L2 Radiant. I think I can find it. With anthropomorphism, we watched a video on like humans having like monkeys, not as like pets, but like children. Like they were putting makeup on them. They were like dressing them, like giving them cake and candy. Like, I think the one quote I still have in this, yeah, they were putting them in makeup, putting clothes, like diapers, they were swaddling them, like giving them an improper diet, like one of the people in that video was like, it's not a monkey, it's my daughter. And I just have in all caps next to that, it's still a monkey, Kent. Yeah, and how, through anthropomorphism, but also anthropodenial, like we deny other animals' emotions. Because when you think, like you don't think about it, but for us, for humans, we have friends, we have love, we experience grief. But for non-human animals, oh, it's not a friend, that's a social partner. Oh, that's not love, that's a mate bond. Or that animal's not experiencing grief, they're just stressed. Like, we place a barrier between our feelings and theirs. Like, then the different ethical theories. Let me try to find my notes on... Where is it? Host migration in progress. Okay. Let me see. God, we've been live for nearly 2 hours. Jeez. That's fine. Yeah, oh, here's the 5 domains. Found it. Yeah, so like how we assess animal welfare, which can be difficult because we can't speak to them. So like there's 2 schools of thoughts to like address animal welfare. There's like how do they cope with their environment and how do they cope with their feelings. So feelings is short term in the moment, and then like we're focusing more on the like negative experiences, like short term, like can be difficult to quantify, versus environment that's long term, like stressors, like what is their behavior, physiology, production, reproduction, a lot easier to quantify. But the 5 freedoms of animal welfare are freedom from hunger and thirst, freedom from discomfort, freedom from pain, injury, and disease, freedom to express normal behaviors, and freedom from fear and distress. So 4 out of 5 are on negative experiences. So, like, it gives us an idea to, like, stay away from these negative parts. It doesn't give us any guidance on, like, what do we work towards. So I think in like 2020, 2021-ish, this changed to the 5 domains. So nutrition, so like adequate food, water, like having a balanced diet, their environment, like what is their comfort? Is it like pleasurable? Like their health, are they healthy, fit, uninjured? So like not just being like, oh, freedom from injury, but instead they're healthy, they're fit. Like behavior, are they able to express normal and rewarding behaviors? And then like what is their mental state? Are they having mostly positive experiences in their life or mostly negative? Who knows? Yeah, what's a moral agent versus moral patient? But now, we're going to talk about the animal rights versus animal welfare. Because it's not as clear-cut as you think, and a lot of times, that's what they want you to believe, is that they're the same thing. So, like, that's, like, big thing for PETA, is that they rely on, more relics I see for Nightwave. But essentially, animal rights and animal welfare are 2 different things. They have 2 different ideologies. Like almost completely. So it's like they like are not interchangeable for like Can I not do this fissure? So animal welfare is the idea that we can use animals for our benefit, whether it be like through food, pets, entertainment, research, but we will take every step possible to avoid unnecessary pain and suffering, and we consider their physical and behavioral needs. So that's animal welfare. Like we can use animals for research, entertainment, food, and then companionship. Animal rights is different. Like, oh, I support animal rights. I don't think majority of the people who say that actually they don't support animal rights, because animal rights is the end of use of animals for human benefits. And this includes everything. Not just like, oh, go vegan and stop eating meat. This is even pets. Even your companion. They have to be set free because you're using them for your benefit. It's like, oh, I support animal rights. A lot of people, you don't support animal rights. You support animal welfare. Like there is a difference in the 2. So that's 32 void traces. Nice. What is happening? What? And I'll pull up the rest of my notes because I cannot see them. Because I only have one monitor. I can see like parts of my notes on the side of my screen. Like if animal rights, like they rely on you not knowing the difference between animal rights and animal welfare. They'll be like, oh, do you support it? Oh, you'll give us money then. And it's like, no. And then I think the animal rights will lead into the rant about the slaughter process, because as a person who has my degree in animal sciences, we talked about slaughter. Like, we talked in depth about it. We watched videos, like the different ways, like is it an uncomfy topic? Yeah, but we had to talk about it. We need to be informed on it. Very important, especially as consumers, we need to be informed on it. As it's mostly the consumers that dictate the trends. Only one monitor? How do yes, I see chat with my phone. Like, I could pull up chat, like, on the side, because I do have space there,